What's the naughtiest thing you've ever done? My college girlfriend and I were very proactive when it came to being intimate with each other. However, she lived in a sorority, which meant her dorm was always occupied. Instead, she would often come over to mine. The issue with this was that I still had a roommate. He was a total geek, obsessed with grades and trying to maintain a perfect GPA, which meant that he was almost always awake late, working on projects and homework. If I wanted to be intimate with my girlfriend while he was awake, I'd ask him to study for a little while downstairs in our lobby. He'd say yes, and that would be that. However, around halfway through my second semester, I noticed that my roommate began going to bed earlier and earlier. This meant that, since I couldn't ask my sleeping roommate to nap downstairs, my girlfriend and I had to try to find other places to be intimate, which really didn't work out. Finally, we both kind of just got fed up one night and decided to have a go at it while my roommate was still in the room, since he was sleeping and all. I did my best to keep things quiet and subtle. My roommate never said anything the next day, and he continued to sleep early. So, my girlfriend and I figured that this arrangement sort of worked. We had a place to be intimate, and he wasn't being disturbed by us every night. It was like our naughty little secret that brought us even closer together, except that this secret was utterly ruined when my roommate nonchalantly mentioned to me that he had invested in earplugs so that he wouldn't have to hear my girlfriend and I going at it. Apparently, he was awake every single time. He just chose not to comment on it. I guess my true naughtiest secret is that I just broke up with the girl and never told her. It was not worth all that. When the teacher wrote "See me after class" on your paper, what did they say to you? From the other side of the desk, I once wrote "See me after class" on an exam paper I handed back to a student in a university intro bio class I was teaching. It was in the South shortly after 9/11, and based on his name and appearance, the young man was obviously East Asian or Middle Eastern. He had also done an outstanding job on the exam, for the second or third time. He seemed a bit of a loner and I just wanted to check in with him, see if he was okay and be a friendly face. I told him it was obvious that he was not a local Southern boy, that I suspected he was from a part of the world that was not particularly popular in the area and that I hoped he was doing okay. He told me that the treatment that he was getting was nothing compared to what he received in his homeland, that he was a Baha'i from Iran and left his country to avoid all the religious persecution. I congratulated him on his excellent performance in my class and asked about his other classes and goals. He said he was getting A's in all his other classes and hoped to become an engineer. The university where I was teaching is a good school and strong in some areas. However, it was not particularly strong in the applied physical sciences and engineering. I suggested he consider transferring to a school where he would be more challenged. When he asked me where, I said, University of Chicago, Stanford, Princeton, MIT, someplace like that. I am not an engineer but tried to name off a few schools that I thought would be good. Several months later, he emailed me, telling me that he had taken my advice, checked all those schools and found that MIT was the only one that would accept transfers at that time. Would I write a letter of recommendation for him? The young man had done what I suggested, so I had no choice but to support him. Now, I am a pro at lures and wrote one of my killer's letters of recommendation for him. I shot straight but included all the info I would want to see if I were on the other end, telling what I knew of the young man, the nature of our relationship and my opinion of his abilities and performance, all with factual examples. I concluded by saying if they were half as smart as I thought they were, they would take him into their program. A while after that, he contacted me to say that he was transferring to MIT. Several years later I did a Google search on his name and found that he had received a master's in electrical engineering from MIT. Some "see me after class" notes may lead to dark places, but most are written to get a better understanding of a situation. I tend to think that they indicate that an instructor/teacher cares enough about the situation to try to resolve it. I was fortunate to have had some really excellent mentors and have tried to honor them. I also respected my students. Most were in school because they wanted an education. Some took my classes because they had to, others because they wanted to. Some faced major obstacles in their lives, including rather weak educational foundations. Still, most came and tried. This is one of several that stands out. I cream pied my teacher. Myself and a guy that I will call Frank had been charged in juvenile court. There was a widely hated teacher at the school, I will call him Mr. Bible, that Frank and I attended. This teacher was way over the top in trying to catch students doing anything against the rules. He actually sat on the roof of the school and used binoculars to watch for any rule breakers before school. At lunchtime and after school he had caught me smoking that year using the binoculars from the roof. Most of the students hated being in his class because he also had a habit of putting his hand down the back of his pants whenever he was writing on the chalkboard. He was a math teacher, so he wrote on the chalkboard a lot. A couple of weeks before the end of the school year, a group of us were complaining about Mr. Bible. During the discussion, someone came up with the idea that it would be fun to put a pie in Mr. Bible's face. In the last weeks of the school year, that idea was discussed often. Finally, it was decided that we should really do it. Several members of the group volunteered to bring a couple of banana cream pies, and Frank and I volunteered to hit Mr. Bible with them. It was my idea, so I had to volunteer. The last day of school came and our friends had brought the 2 banana cream pies as planned. After the last class, all the students were streaming out of the front door of the school, saying their goodbyes for the summer and waiting for their buses or rides home. Mr. Bible was standing in the middle of the flow of students passing by all around him, trying to keep an eye out for any last-minute rule breakers. On either side of the mass of students, Frank and I each had a pie and put on our ski masks. In the confusion of all the students around, Frank and I were able to sneak up behind Mr. Bible without him noticing. As planned, I put my pie into the back of Mr. Bible's head. When he turned around to look, Frank put his pie into Mr. Bible's face. Frank and I took off running, But Frank had recently gotten out of a back brace that he had worn the entire school year and he fell down. I decided to go back to help Frank up instead of continuing to run, so the school's security officers were able to catch both of us. The police were called and Mr. Bible wanted to press charges against us for assault. We were taken to the police station where our parents were called to come and get us. When our court date came, Frank and I were seated together, with a court advocate, at a table in front of the judge and our parents sitting behind us. Mr. Bible was seated at a table next to us with a lawyer. The lawyer was not even halfway through laying out what had happened before almost everyone in the courtroom, including the judge, was chuckling. The judge then started asking me and Frank questions about what we had done, why we did it and how we planned it. By the time we were finished answering the questions, everyone in the courtroom except Mr. Bible was openly laughing. We were not actually convicted of assault, but the judge ordered that we do 3 days of work detail at the city zoo and that our parents pay for Mr. Bible's dry cleaning bill. We both were also expelled from that high school. Men who have laid hands on their wife, what was the reason for it? My first wife was perfect in every single way except one. She had a very weird obsession with popping pimples, and damn near every morning I would wake up to her long acrylics prodding away at my back trying to pop a pimple. At first I thought it was a cute thing of her to do, but the more time went on the more I realized this woman was crazy about popping pimples. Apparently, she popped the pimples of every single one of her friends. I told her repeatedly that I hate having my pimples popped, and that she should stop, but the woman never ever listened to me. It was getting frustrating and most mornings we would have serious arguments about it. The morning I snapped was the morning I pleaded with her not to pop my pimples. I had worked a night shift and came home around 7 a.m. I told her I wanted 5 hours of sleep and she could wake me up normally around noon. I asked her not to pop my pimples just this one time. Yet, I woke up to the feeling of her digging her nails into my back trying to pop a pimple. This one hurt like hell, and as I woke up I asked her what she was doing. Popping your pimples obviously, she replied. I grabbed the phone beside me and checked the time. 9:30. I got mad on the inside but calmly told her to stop, and to let me sleep in peace until 12. We had to argue about it for her to leave me alone. I went back asleep, and was once again awoken by the feeling of someone popping pimples on my back. I shot up and screamed at her. I checked the time and it was a little past 11. She tried defending herself saying she has to pop my pimples and I told her to get out of the room and to let me sleep. I lay down and I kid you not. I feel her sit down onto my back and start again. I lost it. I flipped over and flipped her onto her back and started wailing. I caught myself a few swings in but it was too late, the damage was done. Her nose was broken and her jaw was fractured. We divorced shortly after and I did 6 months in jail. My stepdad played a prank that ruined my relationship with my girlfriend, so I ruined his chances at a promotion. My dad passed away when I was young, and my mother remarried a year later to my stepdad. My stepdad is a G. He filled the father figure role in my life, but always respected the fact that he wasn't my original father. So he kept a very older brother/friend vibe with me, and because I wasn't a bratty kid, it really worked out. Now I am in my sophomore year of high school and one thing that me and my stepdad love to do is play pranks on each other. However, ever since I got a girlfriend my stepdad has been upping the intensity/embarrassment level of these pranks, especially when my girlfriend is at the house. This time he did a prank so bad that it kinda messed up my relationship with my girlfriend for a bit, so I decided to get him back so bad that it would be the greatest prank of all time. Let me give some context for this story. Me and my girlfriend have been seeing each other for a couple months now. She usually comes over on Saturdays to my house so that we can cuddle and watch a movie. During this time my stepdad is usually at the office, so I'm for the most part safe from his pranks. But on this Saturday he decided to work from home. At first he said he wasn't even planning to pull a prank on me while my girlfriend was there, but during the middle of the movie my stepdad asked me to help him with some computer issues. As I got there that's when he let out a space-time bending loud SS fart. It was so loud that I think I even felt the floor shake. My girlfriend immediately looked over and my stepdad blamed it all on me. I tried to defend myself, but my stepdad persuasively convinced my girlfriend that it was me and that I was disgusting. My girlfriend said she didn't want to cuddle or continue the movie after that because she got the ICK, so she got up and left. All the while my stepdad was laughing his SS off. Literally. Later that day, I endlessly texted my girlfriend and she said that everything was fine, but it was really awkward and that it seriously grossed her out. That's when I decided I was going to pull the world's greatest prank on my stepfather. I knew that he had a charity event coming up soon and that he was going to be giving a big speech, so that's when I got the brilliant idea. I immediately went to the store and bought one of those products that when you sit on, it makes a huge farting noise. At the event, I sneaked in and found out where my stepdad's seat was. Mind you, there were college presidents, successful businessmen, and donors all at this event waiting for my stepfather to give a speech. Fast forward to when he sat down and the whole room was quiet. Boom, the loudest fart you could ever expect. I craftily hid it under the seat cushion, so even he was a bit shocked. I explained what I had done when he got home and now I'm extremely grounded for 3 months. I told my friend that my crush could F me in the butt, and he overheard plus update. I told my friend that my crush could F me in the butt, and he overheard. It all started when a teaching assistant for one of my classes got sick, and they got someone else to fill in for a lecture. The guy they got to fill in was a fumbling mess, but damn it he was also so cute. I did some light stalking afterward and found out he has a blog, and it was one of the most wholesome and funny things I had read in a while. One time I was studying in the library and saw that he took a seat near mine, so I struck up a conversation with him, and it went so great. We talked for hours, and I got no work done. I work in a research lab on campus part-time. This past week, My PI was still out on vacation, but my mentor had full access to the lab, so I was free to do my experiments unbothered. One of my close friends also works in the same lab as me, so we've been having a blast just hanging in a basically empty lab. It was about 4 p.m. yesterday when we decided to go out into the hallway to just chill for a bit and eat some snacks. One of the doors to another lab that we were standing close to was open, but we didn't think too much about it since the entire floor was really deserted. We were talking about this guy she's seeing when she asked me if anything new happened between me and the awkward dude who guest lectured. I told her about what happened in the library, and she started drilling me about his facial expressions and how close he was sitting to analyze if he was into me. We were saying things like I feel like at least one time his eyes dropped down to my lips, or did he stare at you for longer than 5.7 seconds? Because if it was, he for sure wants to F you. It was all for craps and giggles. Then me, being the crass unfiltered person I am, went and said, I would even let him F me in the butt if he wanted to. And we both burst out into laughter. Disclaimer, I was not kidding. Then, out of nowhere, I hear footsteps coming out of the open door next to me, and both me and my friend whip around to look. Lo and behold, to my terror, the guy I like walks out of the door, gives us a barely concealed shocked look and says, hey, you guys might want to just keep it down a little bit. I can hear everything. Then he winks at me, goes back inside but leaves the door open. I gave my friend the most mortified look, and she mouths, holy poop, that's him, and I straight up bolt down the hallway and flee down the stairs with my friend chasing behind me until I reached the outside of the building, where I promptly collapse onto a bench. My friend comforted me amidst many fits of laughter while I died slowly due to the sheer embarrassment I brought onto myself. She also searched up the name of the lab that is literally 3 down from ours, and sure enough, he's listed under our team. Update: I didn't come back to the lab until winter break was over, hoping that the large influx of people would somehow prevent me from ever seeing him again. That didn't happen. On my first day back, I was in the break room making some toast when he walks in. I had thought, knowing that a confrontation was probably inevitable and that I ought to apologize for my crass comment. But instead, I frantically looked away and focused on putting peanut butter on my toast, because if I do that, he can't see me, right? I accidentally lathered peanut butter all over my hand, and he noticed me. That didn't happen again. Instead, he came up right next to me, smiled, and said, hey, how was your break, and why is there peanut butter on your hand? I avoided the peanut butter question. I looked up awkwardly and told him it was fine, mainly just stayed on campus and worked at the lab. He told me that he basically did the same but went to see his family for a couple of days. He didn't bring up what happened either, thank God. Then he said something along the lines of, is that all you're having for lunch? And I was like, yeah, I was in a rush and forgot to pack something. Then he said, oh, I was gonna go grab something to eat at a sandwich place, do you want to come with? I was like, what the F, that smooth mother effer. I tried not reading into it and brushed it off as in being nice, so I said sure, and we went. Well, we ended up having a great lunch. Inevitably, as we were on our way back, he finally made a crack and was like, so tell me, after our lunch today, how many seconds do you think I spent staring at you? I literally just looked at him blankly with my jaw dropped before he chuckled out, it has to be longer than 6 seconds at a time, right? That has to mean I like you. This was a reference to what my friend and I were talking about that day when he overheard. Even with my shock, I managed to laugh and make a wise crack back at him. Well, tomorrow is our 1-month anniversary. We done the butt stuff, by the way. I took one for the team and dated a fat girl. Said girl is now my wife, and she just found out why I agreed to go out with her. 2 years ago I was at a party with a friend of mine named Joshua. Josh suddenly spotted 2 girls. The one he was interested in was this pretty blonde, while the other was her beluga friend. Josh turned to me and urged me to be his wingman by taking one for the team and distracting her friend while he chatted with the blonde. After a little back and forth, I decided to just do it to be a good friend. So we made our way over and made our move, where I would go in first and start chatting with the friend while Josh began flirting with the girl he was interested in. Again, this friend I was talking to was by no means unattractive in the face, just a beluga. I thought she was very sweet, even though I was just talking to her out of obligation. It didn't really matter anyway, cause ultimately the girl Josh was into already had a boyfriend apparently and had seemingly brushed him off, with him eventually patting me on the back to signify I didn't have to chat with her friend anymore. So I decided to politely end the conversation, however, not before she asked for my Instagram, which I decided to give her. I didn't really think much of it at the time, and I was certain I would never see her again. However, a couple days later I ran into the same girl in my school's campus store. I didn't really recognize her at first, but she seemed to know me immediately. We decided to chat for a bit, and I was reminded of her name, Megan. Anyway, it was really just small talk until Megan suddenly seemed a little awkward. I asked her if everything was alright and she replied that nothing was wrong, but she wanted to know if I wanted to go out with her sometime. This actually came as a shock to me, as it was the first time a girl had ever made the first move and asked me out. So, even though she wasn't really my type at all at the time, I said yes. And that was probably the best decision of my life. Me and Megan really hit it off, and before long we were in a serious relationship. Any qualms I had about her weight were gone immediately after the first time we had intimacy, as I actually found her body to be really soft and comforting. More to play with, as I've always said. I had never felt so relaxed cuddling with someone before I met her. And there was a lot to cuddle. We've been dating for 2 years now and I absolutely love her. She's my everything, and I have even been thinking of proposing as soon as we are both done with school. Everything was perfect, until last month. Last month, we hosted a small get-together just for a few friends who are also in relationships, like a couple's game night sort of thing. It was here where Josh, who has been my good friend for years now, was pretty intoxicated, and made a joke about how if he had never forced me to take one for the team back then I would have never found the love of my life. The joke didn't really register to me as anything negative and I was also out of it, so I just laughed it off. Megan was cuddled up next to me on the couch though, and asked what Josh meant by that. I told her nothing, but Josh, being the intoxicated idiot that he was, elaborated and told her the story about how we met through my perspective at the time. Megan just said oh. And didn't really react, so I figured she just brushed it off. However, the rest of the night she seemed kind of distant and even a little sad. Finally, once everyone had left, she let it all out and started crying. She was essentially in shock because this whole time she thought I approached her because I was interested in her, and learning it was because I was forced to seem to bring back old insecurity within her. It doesn't help that she's actually gained weight since back then, and now is truly big, even though I don't really have any problem with that and have told her that multiple times. More to cuddle and more to love. I immediately gave her the full story, about how I fell for her right after that, and I have loved and adored her ever since. She seemed reassured and we even cuddled the whole night after that. Since that night though, she's been acting differently. It's like she's lost her confidence around me. She only wears large, baggy clothing even though she used to never before. She refuses to change with me in the room and hardly eats in front of me. Before, I used to playfully tickle her stomach sometimes and she'd always smile and play along. Now she seems insecure when I so much as accidentally graze it. She also refuses to have intimacy without a shirt on. I miss seeing them rolls jiggling sometimes. So far I sat her down multiple times and explained that her body is incredibly attractive to me and there's no one more beautiful in my eyes than her. But it's like she doesn't believe me. Lately I've been thinking about offering her to come to the gym with me, but I'm scared she may be more insecure at that suggestion. What happened to the smartest kid in your school? The smartest kid in my school was a social outcast. He was a senior and was frequently made fun of for being openly gay and still having his V card. People made fun of him and called him a nerd, but this dude was dang smart. A photographic memory and played instruments unbelievable. He literally posted a video online of him strapped to a chair, hanging upside down as the chair was mounted to some platform, perfectly playing the piano. Kid was a genius, but no amount of genius saved him from his bullies. He would frequently get hurt a lot in school. It all ended very tragically for him. He was only a few days away from his 18th birthday and our senior exams were coming up. One day while we were at school, the school had a shutdown and we were all evacuated and saw the police come in. They found his body in the toilets. A group of 5 bullies ganged up on him. They hurt him until he passed away. The kid had asthma and during the wailing, he passed away. It was reported that he was trying to reach for his inhaler after the wailing ended and one of the kids took it and tossed it out of the bathroom window. They just left him there to pass away. It was devastating. The people doing it were all 17, Part 1. The 18-year-old was sentenced to prison while the others did a few measly years in juvie. I'll never forget the strength of the nerd's mother. She came to the school the next day and spoke during an assembly. Her speech made me cry. She cried during it. It was a roughly 1-hour rant about how disgusting the students who did this were and shared her favorite memories with her son. The funeral was held a week later, and it was the most tragic thing I had ever been to.